So at this point, I think we're going to the video. Is that right? Okay. So just want to say very briefly that we owe a debt of gratitude to Pedro Costa, who has put together this video, and it was a lot of work. This was something that the committee planning this event decided would be a major contribution to our organization to learn more about what our diplomats do in their offices. And so we thank you also, those of you who are our members that were involved in the production of the video. So thank you very much, Pedro, as well. We're really excited today to share with you some opportunities here to talk with the 5 consular members of Seattle Rotary who are in our club and have them talk about the role of the diplomats in Seattle and Seattle Rotary and our community and how they intersect. This is a really exciting time for Seattle as we're emerging on the global scene as a major hub for diplomacy and global engagement. One of the things that we are experiencing right now is the dynamic relationship between the Consular Association and its members and Seattle Rotary. This is contributing to a lot of great synergy and alignment between these two, and how we're beginning to really impact the wider community as well, helping Seattle and Greater Seattle engage globally in some new and creative ways. Look forward to your partnership as Rotarians in this process as we build our global initiative and our diplomatic initiative.
Canadians have the stereotype of being nice and polite because our culture is based in respect in diversity. And in fact, I'm a product of Canadian diversity. My father and mother are both from South Korea, and they immigrated to Canada. I grew up understanding the value of hard work, and I grew up understanding the value of diversity and multiculturalism. Diplomacy is more important than ever in today's age. There are tensions everywhere, and there's a saying in the diplomatic corps, where diplomacy ends is where military begins. We need to find ways to communicate and work together and have dialogue. And that's why the importance of diplomacy is more important than ever in today's world. So I applaud and I commend the Rotary Club's efforts to put together the diplomatic task force. But the reputation it has here in Seattle is one where it can truly be a leader in helping solve some of these difficult challenges that we face.
Rotary Club in Seattle is very vibrant, very active, and I think it is true to the spirit of Rotary. Diplomacy these days, diplomacy concerns immigration issues, social justice, equality of income and equality of opportunity. Therefore, I think the creation of the diplomacy task force is really appropriate and provides a great chance for us, governmental representatives of foreign countries.
So I think diplomacy is, if we understand it as the way of getting countries to better understand each other and societies, it is of the utmost importance as we go into 2018. We have to create the bridges, the understanding, the commitments across societies, across countries to better understand each other, to work together and to better the world. Because the challenges that we face as a world cannot be addressed by any single country in the world, even though they might be a very powerful country. The challenges that we face need global action. So in the past 20 years, what we've seen around the world is a change in the way diplomacy works and international relations work. Rotary has a network around the world of people committed to making the world a better place. We're trying to engage Seattle Port with more Rotarian groups within Mexico, so we have a better linkage in the long term.
So I think in terms of diplomacy, nowadays the consulate has more role to play to enhance public diplomacy. particularly enhance understanding among people. The Rotary Club has a convening power, so it has members of eminent presence. So I think it could role as a channel between the Korean community and the US people.
Glad that Rotary Club is interested and also involved in diplomacy and in foreign relations, because generally speaking, not a great percentage of Americans are interested in international affairs. So I think it's very important that we have Rotary Club here that are pushing forth the understanding of international relationship, especially United States relationship with its most important allies and friends in the world. For my office, probably you know that Taiwan doesn't have formal diplomatic ties with the United States. This is a long history, but in short, in 1979, the United States government switched the recognition from Taipei to Beijing. But since then, U.S. Adopted the Taiwan Relations Act. So Taiwan Relations Act is the legal basis for United States government to continue the relationship with Taiwan until today. So in the past 37 years, the relationship was not interrupted. Rather, it has been strengthened and deepened and broadened. So I'm really happy that I have this opportunity to work with the Rotary Club's diplomatic task force to promote the understanding of the Rotarian here, and specifically, and also the whole citizens of the greater Seattle area to understand the importance of Taiwan's relationship with Washington State and with the United States.
Well, thank you all so much. That really is exciting to feel like Rotary can be so much a part of what's happening on a global level. It's now my honor to be able to introduce Deputy Mayor Shefali Ranganathan. Shefali Ranganathan is the Deputy Mayor External Relations for the City of Seattle, where she oversees 13 city departments ranging from transportation to economic development. In support of Mayor Jenny Durkin's focus on building a more affordable and inclusive city, Deputy Mayor Ranganathan brings a community-focused approach that emphasizes expansive community engagement to help solve our city's challenges and to harness Seattle's culture of innovation to create opportunity for all. Prior to the city, Deputy Mayor Ranganathan led Transportation Choices Coalition, TCC, a transportation-focused nonprofit that helped win significant investments for transportation, including $54 billion Sound Transit 3 light rail expansion, and the $930 million Move Seattle levy, which invests in sidewalks, transit, and other essential transportation improvements. Her focus on transportation equity for working families and communities of color helped build strong partnerships with social justice organizations that resulted in the creation of Orca Lift, the nation's most expansive low-income transit fare program, and $20 million for affordable housing near future transit stations. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for representing the Office of the Mayor for today's Seattle Rotary Diplomacy Day event.
Good afternoon, Seattle. It is such a pleasure for me to be here today. It's a little chilly, but it's still, I'm hoping the warmth of this room will warm me up. First of all, I want to thank the Rotary Club of Seattle and Mark Wright, who, it turns out that Mark Wright and I knew each other many, many years ago, working on a different type of civic project. So thank you for hosting today. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you. First, I want to acknowledge the honored guests, the Consul General and staff, for the essential role that you play in making sure that Seattle is engaged with the international community. And I know that Mayor Durkin is looking very much forward to meeting all of you next week. So Seattle, it's no secret that Seattle is an international city. Only in Seattle does an immigrant from India become the deputy mayor. And your presence, as well as mine, shows that Seattle is welcoming to a broad range of people and cultures. So I have a funny little story. It actually was completely coincidental, but it turns out in the last week, me and my family have sampled the cuisines of Mexico, Japan, Taiwan, Ethiopia, and Poland is on the list for this week. And we were also in Canada over the weekend. So that reminds me how truly international city Seattle is and how important you all are, representing countries from all over the world, are to our community and to our fabric. It is you and those in the community, our international community, that brings strength to the city and makes the city of Seattle a vibrant place to live, work, and to visit. Fun little fact, amongst all the American cities, Seattle ranks 4th in international exports, and that's comparing us with, say, New York and LA. So, we definitely are punching above our weight class. As you know, tourism is our second leading employer, and foreign investment continues to account for tens of thousands of jobs. So that's why I will tell you, on behalf of Mayor Durkin, the city remains committed to international engagement, to expanding cultural connections, and demonstrating global leadership on issues that affect metropolitan areas all around the world, and for advancing trade and investment. My daughter and I have been watching the Olympics with great excitement, and it really is an example of how together we are stronger and what an important role diplomacy continues to play on the world stage and here in Seattle. So I'm so excited again to have you all representing our so many amazing nations and cultures. In addition to serving the citizens of those nations that call Seattle home, we know that your presence here serves the city as well as help maintain ties that bind us to the rest of the world. I look forward to hearing from the panel, and once again, on behalf of Mayor Durkin and the City of Seattle, thank you for your service, thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you do to help Seattle thrive.
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. This was really encouraging to hear your comments. Well, dear fellow Rotarians and honored guests, it is my distinct pleasure this third annual Diplomacy Day to have the honor of introducing 3 new Rotary members in the category Diplomatic Member. I think it's a first in our history, probably. So that's exciting. To really feel the engagement of the diplomatic community and the leadership means a lot. For the first member introduction, I would like to welcome the new Consul General of the Republic of South Korea in Seattle, Hyung-jong Lee. Would you stand, please, while I introduce you? Hyung-jong arrived in Seattle 2 months ago from Seoul, Korea, where he recently served as the Director General for Environment and Climate Change. Hyung-jong was the Deputy Representative of Korea to the Paris Climate Change Conference in 2015. Both he and Rotary member Roberto Dondish, who was leading the Mexican delegation to the Paris conference, met at the conference, so they share expertise in climate change negotiations and are now reunited in Seattle. Hyung-jong graduated from Korea's top university, Seoul National University, in the field of international relations. During his last year at university, he passed the stringent Ministry of Foreign Affairs qualification test and joined the ministry in 1990, commencing his diplomatic career. Several years later, Hyung-jong took the opportunity to further his education by going to Dublin, Ireland, where he earned a master's in economics at University College Dublin, known as Ireland's Global University. Hopefully, he had a chance to sample some Guinness while there. Back in Seoul at the head office, it didn't take long for the ministry to realize the value of his global perspective and mastery of economics. In 1996, Hyung-jong was posted to Paris to serve as Korea's representative in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. Hyung-jong notes that he led a fairly, quote, ordinary life. I'm not sure how others define an ordinary life, but Hyung-jong's globetrotting and strategic work in economics may not exactly qualify. His work took him from Paris to Tripoli, Libya in 2000, back to Seoul in 2002, then back for a second term in Paris at the OECD from 2004 to 2006. Returning to Seoul in 2006, Hyung-jong became Director of International Economic Affairs for the ministry. 3 years later, in 2009, during the global crisis, Hyung-jong was tapped a third time to serve in Paris with the OECD as an economic counselor. In 2012, the Paris days were over, and he was sent for the first time to Southeast Asia to serve in Korea's embassy in Phnom Penh, Cambodia for 2 years. Hyung-jong is married and has 2 kids, a daughter and a son, who is currently doing his obligatory military service in Korea. He's an avid sports fan and loves golf, table tennis, and tennis, so feel free to invite him out for a game. Hyung-jong's vision for his service in the Pacific Northwest focuses on economic relations between the Northwest region and Korea. He's very interested in entrepreneurship and new ideas for economic development. Korea is moving aggressively from a manufacturing focus to a mixed economy and is preparing for what some experts are calling a forced industrial revolution. While in Seattle, Hyung-jong looks forward to meeting many Rotarians and encountering different talents and perspectives found here. Welcome to Seattle Rotary Consul General Hyung-jong Lee. Thank you. For the next member introduction, I would like to welcome the new Consul General of Canada in Seattle, Brandon Lee. Brandon arrived in Seattle in the fall, moving from his prior diplomatic post in San Francisco, where he was based for 2 years as Consul General for California and Hawaii. Apparently, it was time for a hardship post, so he was assigned to the frigid Northwest. But then Brandon has taken the unconventional path to diplomacy throughout his career. Brandon's family is originally from Korea, and he was born in Toronto, so he developed multilingual and global competence early in life. He speaks Korean, French, Italian, and Spanish. Early on, Brandon was also an accomplished musician, playing acoustic and electric guitar and once opening for B.B. King with a group. He also was a top-notch amateur baseball player who could throw a baseball in the low 90s and got close to playing for the Toronto Blue Jays. Frankly, I think the Mariners could use you now, Brandon. I hope you're available. But in the mid-1990s, Brandon really excelled as a tech entrepreneur in the IT sector, starting several companies and becoming proficient in the field of digital innovation and change management. His specialty was the development of electronic banking systems. Earning a degree from McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario in commerce strategy and economics, Brandon did the next unconventional thing. He backpacked from Brazil to Mexico over an 18-month period to celebrate the arrival of the new millennium. He also became the North American Business Development Manager, Telecommunications and Federal Government for AMS Systems Management Canada from 1999 to 2003. It was at that point that duty called, and the Department of Foreign Affairs, now called Global Affairs Canada, sought Brandon out for a career in public service. From 2004 to 2009, he served as the Deputy Director of the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade in Ottawa. In 2009, Brandon became Director of the Department and the first Director of Innovation for the ministry, whence he led a comprehensive conversion to digital platforms. In 2011, Brandon commenced a new itinerant phase of his career, moving to Geneva on loan to the WTO, where he served for 2 years as Senior Special Advisor on Tech Innovation. Following that successful stint, he was asked to work in Geneva with the International Committee of the Red Cross for 2 years to 2014 on a massive digital overhaul. About to go back to the private sector, Brandon received the call of duty once again to serve Canada as its ambassador to the Silicon Valley, and he could not resist. He continues in Seattle as Canada's Senior Digital Strategist for Global Affairs Canada. Along the way in this fascinating journey, Brandon has also served as Director of Club Yoga, a nonprofit dedicated to children's yoga. Brandon's wife, Giovanna Mingarelli, is a tech entrepreneur in her own right, and she was recently voted one of Canada's 100 most influential women. Seattle sounds like the perfect place for Brandon and Giovanna and their 2 pugs. Welcome. For the final member introduction, I'd like to welcome Washingtonian Mark Ganter, Honorary Consul of Ethiopia in Seattle, and Managing Director at National Standard Finance. Unlike diplomats who come to the Seattle area from elsewhere, Mark grew up in Western Washington and went global as a result of his career in tech consulting. Mark's grandfather, Mark M. Ganter, was the first commander of the USS Sacramento in 1964 and was in charge of the naval shipyard in Bremerton in the 60s, so Mark's local roots go deep. Mark went to college in Eastern Washington where he played baseball at shortstop and second base, and 1 year in college ball led the Western U.S. in hitting with a .393 average. Wow. Graduating from WSU in Management Information Systems, Mark had a serious shot at playing pro ball, but grabbed the brass ring when offered a great job at Electronic Data Systems, Ross Perot's company, as a systems engineer, and he still wonders what might have been if he'd given pro ball a shot. The Mariners may soon be calling you as well, Brandon. Mark. Can you play first base, by the way, Mark? Just checking. Okay. Because I heard today on the radio they need a first baseman. Since 1995, Mark has been consulting in the tech sector with several groups, including most recently his own company, ArcSoft, and global powerhouse National Standard Finance, LLC, which he joined in 2014 as an Africa specialist. A major turning point in Mark's career came in 2009 when he met a key HR professional from Ethiopia, Abel Girmay. Together, Mark and Abel began to develop services for the country of Ethiopia, securing a variety of government contracts for IT tech training and human resource development. The government of Ethiopia began to take note of Mark's passion and effectiveness in working with the people of Ethiopia, and they soon asked Mark if he would consider becoming the Honorary Consul of Ethiopia in Seattle. This he gladly agreed to do. In his role as Honorary Consul, Mark's responsibilities focused on spurring increased foreign direct investment into Ethiopia. From all indications, Ethiopia is an extremely strategic country for current and future economic development and opportunity. Now a globalist through and through, Mark has traveled to many parts of Africa, including Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Tunisia, and South Africa, and has also spent time in Europe and China. Mark has a vision for global engagement and development through large-scale financial reform and human resource development. No doubt the International Service Committee will come calling soon. Mark is married, and he and his wife have 2 kids, Mark the fourth, there's four Marks in a row, age 14, and Melissa, age 12. This past year, Melissa's select gold soccer team almost won Washington State's Founders Cup, so we'll need to keep an eye on her soccer career. He tells me she's a serious soccer player. Mark loves racquetball, and his family is big on collectible cars. We're excited to have you join Rotary, Mark, as you look to give back to your community, engage with your Rotary colleagues. Please join me in welcoming to Rotary our 3 newest members, Consul General Hyung Jong Lee, Consul General Brandon Lee, and Honorary Consul Mark Ganter. And now, past President Paul Ishii will take it away for the main program. Here you go, Paul.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. How about another hand for this distinguished panel up here? Thank you. Consul General Yamada and Director General Vincent Yao will be part of this panel that I'll be facilitating. But let me do a little quick intro here. The word diplomacy comes from the French word diplomate, which means diplomat. A diplomat lives in a foreign country, fluent in its language and culture, fostering understanding and goodwill and forging agreements that are hopefully mutually agreeable. Let's meet a couple of our own diplomats. I have to make 2 brief introductions. I wish I had more time, but let me just remind everyone who these 2 very important members are. So let's start right here. Consul General Yamada-san has been with the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs since 1983. He has served as a DCM in Kenya and Belgium. Past overseas postings include Moscow, Brussels, 2 times, Warsaw, New York, and Nairobi. He received his degree in international studies from the University of Tokyo, often called the Harvard of Asia, and his graduate degree from Columbia University. He is married with a son and a parakeet. Director General Vincent Yao. Director General Yao, responsible for the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office and for all consular affairs in Seattle since 2016. He represents his country of Taiwan for Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, and Alaska. He has served as the chief of political section of the Department of North American Affairs of the Foreign Ministry of Taiwan and on the National Security Council. Vincent served as an officer in the Marine Corps. He served his BA and graduate degree in international relations from National Cheng Chi University, trained at the Diplomacy School in Oxford, England, and was a senior fellow at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. And I went to Wazoo. You can see when I was interviewing this, I went, hey, you know. As you can see, the diplomatic corps always send their best to represent their countries. In the Rotarian tradition of fostering fellowship, I will be using your first names during the discussion, Giro and Vincent. So let's get some perspectives, shall we? Since we've been talking about the Mariners, I have an idea. How about if Giro and Vincent talk to the Little League baseball teams of Japan and Taiwan and make those farm teams for the Mariners? Perhaps we can make it in the playoffs in the next century? All right, let's get serious here. First question, and after the question, we'll start with Giro and then Vincent. What is the perspective of East Asia towards the trend of many Western countries leaning towards isolationism? For example, Brexit, France, and then us. And how will this affect the relations with the Far East? Giro?
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon. I think what is happening today is more like a populism rather than isolationism of Europe. And I think Brexit was the direct result of this populism. I think there is a growing fear of immigrants and a very rapid technological change. Both are, some perceive threatening, the deprivation of, work and I think a loss of the national identity. And but I don't think that there is a growing, a trend for isolationism in Europe. There are, the French and German leaders are strongly committed to multilateralism. That is, the idea of the European Union. And Japan has recently, mostly concluded the free trade and economic partnership agreement, with the European Union. I think it is important to wave the flag of multilateralism and open and free trade. And I think the strong and big economic entities like the Europe and Japan can probably show to the world that the rather than being closed, but being open is the way to do the business in this very turbulent world.
Thank you very much. Vincent?
Thank you. It's a great honor to be one of the panelists here today. And, in diplomatic circles, words matter significantly in any diplomatic statement. So we watch very closely on what the administration and the senior governments are saying. I know that many of you may not think they take their words seriously, but we watch them very closely. After President Trump's first trip to Asia last year, Indo-Pacific has become a term that has been regarded as a U.S. diplomatic and geopolitical construct. Also in 2018 U.S. national security strategy, it recognized the importance of strengthening Indo-Pacific partnership and alliances in preserving U.S. competitiveness edge and strategic advantage. But in that same national security strategy, it also emphasized advancing American prosperity. So it says that economic security is national security. So now we see the U.S. Military and strategic presence in Asia Pacific remain very much deeply engaged. However, on the economic side, the question remains how the United States is going to advance its prosperity. And as you all know that security and economics cannot be separated. So dropping off from regional economic integration, preference for bilateralism, and withdrawal from multilateral environmental commitments, it seems to us they're sending very confusing signals. So I think personally, there is a missing linchpin between the security aspect and the economic aspect of the Trump administration's national security strategy.
Thank you, Vincent. Obviously not being a diplomat, I often get confused, or maybe, I need clarification on this, and that is fair trade. I mean, what really does that mean, fair trade? Giro?
That's a tough one, yeah? But I think, like in any aspect of human relations, how you feel something is fair differs from a person to person. But I think, it should really mean a level playing field, If the playing field is level, then if you work hard, then you have a better chance for success. If you get lazy, then you lose. That's fair enough, I think. So I think rather than arbitrarily a rule, there should be a common rule applicable to everybody, big and powerful and weak and small. Then I think there should be the consensus that anybody sticking to the rule and making great efforts would be fairly treated, and that should be called a fair trade.
Vincent?
Well, as you all know that this new administration also talked a lot about America first. So I think that, or many people also believe that some in the administration believe that the economic openness and globalization actually hurt U.S. jobs and its industrial competitiveness. And so they believe that a trade surplus means that the United States is winning in the global economy, and the trade deficit means a proof of losing out. So in the future, now the United States focuses on the bilateral trade negotiation, and in all these trade negotiations, the goal is to reduce the trade deficit with the U.S. Most important trading partners, and most notably in Northeast Asia. So, but the notion of this, whether or not it's correct, is debatable. However, I have to say that in this globalized era, countries both are affected and benefit from economic openness. So we need to keep that in mind But I do agree that in any future bilateral trade agreement the United States negotiate with its major trading partners, some sort of mechanism to revise the agreement is needed, because technology is evolving in a much faster pace than any trade negotiation. Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, is the USA still a safe haven for Asian investment? Boy, all right. Whoa, okay. Giro?
May I say that's even a tougher one? Well, I was talking to a few Japanese business persons that have got made a big direct investment in the United States, including some of the car companies. And for them, a decision to make a big investment, creating factories, etc., in the United States means that they rely on the trustworthiness of the investment, atmosphere. When they commit some money, a big chunk of money, then they usually look ahead for 7 years or more, because that's the sort of a minimum time that a direct investment will start to bear fruit. And so if you look ahead and think that the rules and regulations are trustworthy, transparent, and predictable for at least 7 years, then the businessman will invest in that country. And I think the fact that the United States still remains the #1 destination for the Japanese companies. There are so many Japanese companies, and about 1 million employment is created by the Japanese companies. But that is a show of trust of the Japanese companies in the stability and of the U.S. business climate. And we hope that this predictability, trustworthiness of this business environment will be maintained. I'm sure it will be maintained because I think that's where the U.S. national interest lies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Vincent, we just have about 1 minute left, so if you could wrap it up with your comment, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. United States is Taiwan's the second largest trading partner, and Taiwan is the U.S. 10th largest trading partner, and U.S. is the #1 investment destination for Taiwan as well. So that means that we share the same values. There's a rule of law, and you don't have to worry about the IPRs being infringed upon by your trading partners. So that's the reason why we still regard the United States as a very important business partner and to invest. And but I have to add that because the TPP that we just talked about was actually a landmark agreement that for U.S. engagement in Asia Pacific that is actually built in decades of security cooperation and shared values. So it's important to maintain some sort of economic integration among United States and its most important allies and partners, so that the United States can keep its leadership in this region.
Thank you very much. Vincent and Giro, thank you very much for being part of our panel. Appreciate it.